say when we're live, and then you can share it out. Go into Healers Haven and into the live and just share it out. Okay, we're live. Greetings, greetings, good evening. Thank you for joining. Please say hello as you come into the space so we know who has joined us. We will get started shortly. It's going to take some time for the notification to go out, especially because we are 24 hours later than it was actually supposed to air. All is in divine order. So I'm just going to take a few moments just to share it out so that people know that we are on. And ladies, my wonderful guests, you can do the same.
Yes, I'm sharing.
Me too. Okay.
Hello, hello. Say who you are. Just say hello so we know who is joining us this evening. Come back to my people over here. Okay, so as the notifications go out and people realize that we are on, because delay is not denial.
That's right.
So,
we know that to be true.
So I am excited that, I'm excited that we're able to get on this evening because we were originally scheduled to come on last night as a part of my overall Healers Haven, Healers Haven virtual panel series for Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So even though July is over and we're in August, look, it's always a great time to spread awareness about mental health, especially in our communities. So I am Phoenix Love of the Healers Haven Wellness Solutions. I work with purpose-driven leaders to help them achieve their wellness goals by using holistic healing solutions and therapeutic interventions, and to also help them achieve work-life balance. I am the helper to the healer and the healer to the helper. Thank you so much for joining. I have so much that I want to talk about tonight, and I have two wonderful guests, and we are going to have a dynamic conversation because just because of the energy that's in the space. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that this series this week, it is already so powerful, and it's been enlightening, it's been powerful, it's been thought-provoking, and it really was an opportunity to bring awareness to prevalent issues plaguing our communities and to introduce you to the change agents that are out there doing this amazing work. It's an opportunity to really facilitate different initiatives, and also for you to think about how you can support this movement that's going on around mental health awareness, especially in communities of color. So I want to let everyone know that this is my passion. This is what I love to do. I use this platform to showcase these wonderful experts and bring them to you so that you know that there are people out there that can help you along your healing journey. So without further ado, I want to introduce my wonderful guest this evening. I have with me Miss Gena Golden, who is a licensed clinical social worker. Her business is Inner Coach Counseling. She is so many different things. She's a neuroscience coach, is that correct? And
Yes.
she works with, and I'm going to really let them introduce themselves, but she also works with people to help them with test anxiety, and she is a hypnotherapist. So I'm going to turn it over and let Gena tell you just a little bit more about what she does, and so you can know who she is.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. It's so good to be here. Can you guys hear me okay with these headphones? Okay, great. Yeah, so we tried to do this yesterday, and that's okay. We're back here today. Thank you all for tuning back in and giving us another try. Yeah, I'm Gena Golden, like she said, like Phoenix said. Some people call me the inner coach. Some people call me the hypnosista. I do, I do some podcasting work, and I call myself an inner coach because I am also a life coach aside from being a licensed clinical social worker. And so, being a life coach, I like to use the term inner coach because I believe that we all kind of have our own internal coach where with our own internal power and intuitive knowingness. And so I help people to kind of tap into that. And and I did go through a wonderful program that was neuroscience based. And so I was certified as a neuro coach as well, neuro educator. And so I love that. And my sister friend Renetta, also, she'll tell you about her journey there. But I am in private practice in Atlanta, Georgia. And I have a small group practice. We focus on individuals, couples, and families. I personally do a lot of individual work. Um, and I like to provide alternative, complementary, integrative kinds of therapies with my clients, such as emotional freedom technique, which is a tapping process, and hypnotherapy, as well as mindfulness techniques and meditation as well. I'm trained in Reiki. I'm a trained doula as well, um, and energy medicine. So I'm trained in all that, but it really helps to kind of inform my practice really and just give me the extra tools to better support my clients. Um, and what else am I supposed to say about myself?
Where is your practice?
Oh, it's in Atlanta, Georgia. It's in a community called Buckhead or Brookhaven. Those are like two neighboring communities. They're right next to each other, kind of a bustling area. Um, and yeah, so people can get to us quite easily. And yeah, so I'm kind of like in the heart of the city, really.
Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And now let's hear from our other trailblazing therapist that's also has such a wealth of knowledge, and you're going to hear from her as well. And this is Dr. Renetta Weaver, and she is a neuroscience coach as well. But she does a whole bunch of other stuff. I know she's a doctor of metaphysics, and so I'll let her tell you all the wonderful things that she does as well.
So, good evening, everyone. The most important thing I want to say about myself is that I'm the unstuck queen.
Of course, that's the most important.
I am a licensed clinical social worker. I live in Maryland and DC. So I live in Maryland, but I'm licensed in Maryland and DC. I am a certified neuroscience coach with 5 specialty areas. Actually, Gena and I took the same wonderful class together. Yes, I earned my doctorate in metaphysics in 2019. And really, even with all those degrees and titles and things behind my name that we all like to get sometimes, the most important thing that I would like to say is that I work with people to guide them to hearing their inner voice. So I agree with Gena. The most important thing about our work is doing that inner work, helping people to really go inside no matter how chaotic life is outside, helping people to be quiet and still enough to get inside themselves, whatever technique they're going to use, right? Because I do energy healing as well, especially with emotional freedom technique, which we can talk about a little later. But my thing is to help people get still enough to go inside and listen to their inner voice so that they can find their own answers. And that is really what I do as a social worker and a coach.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you both for being here. Thank you, Renata, for being here as well. So let's get into it, the discussion, because the reason why I wanted to do this particular topic of trailblazing therapists and really highlight and focus on therapists that do alternative healing methods to therapy, because, you know, as a complementary service to traditional talk therapy. And I like to say more than talk, more than psychotherapy, you know, and because we know there's many paths to healings. And this is why, you know, I had the different guests that I had on this week, because I want to expose our communities to people of color, people that look like them, you know, because we know, you know, cultural competency and relevancy when you're talking about dealing with sensitive issues like trauma and, you know, relationship issues and the different things that people come to us for. It's like, okay, you have to know that there's not just one way. It's not just laying on the couch and spilling out all of your, you know, your feelings and everything. It's other ways to healing. So this is why I wanted to bring you ladies on, because of your specialization. And my first question is, what led you to do the specialized work that you do? And Renetta, if you want to start.
Okay, so this has been a long time in the making for me, and I really want to say that I am still a baby in this work, because every time I think that I know something, there's something more to know. So I definitely feel like I'm growing into what I've been doing for, I guess, since early 2000s. I really got introduced to Reiki when I was in grad school, and I had gone to just a party or something, and someone was talking about Reiki. I really didn't know what it was, but it was interesting to me. At that time, I didn't try to practice it. I just heard about it. And then after grad school, I had gone to my local hospital because they used to have workshops. And one of the workshops was on using emotional freedom technique to relieve depression, which I was struggling with at the time. And so when I went and I saw the emotional freedom technique, I had never heard of it. And I saw it and I thought, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, it was just so foreign to me. So I was really dismissive of it. Then in closer to maybe 2008, 2007, 2008, my father was dealing with a chronic health condition. He had chronic hiccups, and he had gone to all the top hospitals like Johns Hopkins and everywhere to see what was going on, to see if they could, help him. And they weren't able to relieve his hiccups. So we ended up bringing in a Chinese healer, and she had performed Reiki on my dad. And when she performed the Reiki on him, he had stopped hiccuping, and they transferred to her body. And at that time, I was like, whoa, what just happened? Because like I said, he had chronic hiccups, which means it was all day, every day, nonstop. And at that time, when she did the Reiki, it transferred from his body to hers. So I knew something about that was real. And so that really sparked my interest to get deeper into it. Now, as a social worker, we always have been trained in the biopsychosocial method, which means, like, if you have pain, where does it show up in the body? So, that wasn't a foreign concept, but all these other energy healing things, that's really how I got introduced to it. And I just started doing my own self-study. And through me doing my own self-study, I found, classes and certifications that really spoke to me, like an integrative medicine class that I got certified in. And at the time, nobody else that I knew was practicing integrative healing. And it was just something that I thought that I was interested in until I met you and Gena and other people, that I was like, okay, there is a community out here that is practicing and believing in this stuff. So that kind of pushed me further into it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's nice to get a confirmation that there is your colleagues actually embrace it, because, some people think it's woo-woo. They're like, like you said, wait a minute, when you initially see it and or learn, and even, so this is why I platform, I know you do as well, both of you, is that we need to educate people about this is real and it works.
Mm.
There's real results. Our clients get results. We get results on our own practice on ourselves. So, don't dismiss it because it can actually help you and your loved ones.
Well,
So,
Phoenix, and I'll be quiet after this, but the reason why I did reject it a lot, it looked silly and it wasn't evidence-based as we are taught. Everything has to be evidence-based. And so I was like, well, even now when I try to take energy, emotional freedom technique in some spaces and places, they're like, well, where's the research? What's the energy, the evidence-based
Mhm.
basis behind it? So, there's still a lot of pushback, but now I'm pushing back saying, wait a minute, this stuff really works. I've seen it work. There's evidence that it does work.
well, there actually is research. There's more
Mm-hmm.
and more research coming out, different things, especially with epigenetics.
Yes.
So with that being behind it, so there's actually research, which is great because it does
I,
support what we're
I did my dissertation on epigenetics.
trying.
Mm.
Tina,
Gosh, yes.
so
Uh,
what led you to have doing your specialization?
so I think just organically, I kind of evolved into finding hypnotherapy, for instance, because I would just do my own, self study. I was, doing a lot of reading and metaphysics, a lot of higher consciousness reading and delving into things in that space. And I had no idea hypnotherapy can take you to that space. So when I finally realized there was like this intersection between hypnotherapy and metaphysics, and hypnotherapy and spirituality, and hypnotherapy and higher consciousness and all of that, it was like, oh, this is the perfect blend. This is for me. And so when I finally found a program, um, I was like, these people, this is my tribe. Like, where have you guys been all my life?
Right.
The problem is that most of them didn't necessarily look like me, so it wasn't a lot of people of color. There were a few, but not many. And I just couldn't figure out, well, this is such a beautiful experience, learning how to tap into your inner power, learning how to get rid of the inner critic, slay your inner critic, get rid of the inner chatterbox, understand where all that comes from. Expound on your subconscious mind. Like, how is it that, change, why isn't change happening in our lives? And, just understanding that the change needs to begin in the subconscious mind. We
Mm.
need to unblock and get rid of those inner beliefs that, keep us from losing the weight and sleeping and having a good relationship, and, all the things that we struggle with. Your subconscious mind is running one pattern and you're running another. um, and so you have to like deal with that head on. And hypnosis, I found, was the perfect blend, because consciously, as we all are now, consciously is challenging for us to deal with things because we talk ourselves out of it, right? Because we think we're being very logical, and we're using all our different reasoning skills, but we really are blocking ourselves. So hypnosis is just a way of calming that inner naysayer, just calming it down a little bit, getting you so relaxed that your subconscious can actually start to communicate with your conscious mind, and in a more effective and powerful way. So that made perfect sense to me for all the books and all the studies that I was doing. It was just a perfect combination, and I saw it as a very beautiful experience. People were really tapping into parts of them that they had been afraid of tapping into, or like just really understanding the power that they had. I mean, some people are really afraid of their own mind.
Mm.
They're afraid of the power that they have, or they just don't even know that they can control their experiences in the way that that they can, and so sometimes that's the first time that they're allowed to elevate their imagination and be curious about life and be curious about how they can think and do and be and act in different ways. So hypnosis kind of offers that space of deep relaxation, yet an inner focus to help you get there. So that's how I got on the path of hypnosis. Um, and of course, I just, I'm always attracted to things that deal with the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system and how to shift that. So EFT spoke to that. Emotional freedom techniques spoke to that. It spoke to how do we unblock the meridian blockages in our bodies that acupuncture taught us about, right? So tapping just helped to further, kind of unblock those stuck beliefs, and so the physical process of tapping our bodies help to release that energy, release those negative beliefs, release those limiting beliefs, release all of that. And so that just was an added that was just an added benefit to my practice and to my clients. So sometimes we tap and we do hypnosis and we do, or vice versa. We mix it all together. Is powerful because one technique sometimes can't stand alone, and that's okay. Sometimes that's why we have to take a holistic approach. And so holistically, you know, the mind, the body, the spirit, all of that needs to be dealt with so that we can find the wholeness that's already there. Like we're already whole and complete. Sometimes we forget or we were never taught to understand that about ourselves. And so that's how I kind of, as a social worker, delving into these types of things is not really popular, right? I didn't really have any real role models in social work, to be honest with you. Um, Many of my role models came outside of my own, uh, what am I trying to say? My own field. Maybe oftentimes I had to look at other fields to kind of get the strength and the courage to do something different within my own field. It wasn't that it was condemned, it's just that people were unaware,
Right.
and so they couldn't provide the support.
I
Yeah.
think especially as social workers, because there's such a lack of understanding about what we really do, right?
Yeah.
The first thing they think about is social workers, work with foster care and taking kids out of people's houses, and just
Yeah.
very limited, scope of work that people they really don't understand what's the scope. There's a whole breadth. There's so many different categories and areas of work for social workers. So that's why that was another reason why I wanted to bring on two other
Yeah.
besides myself that are doing this type of work. And it's like, yes, we exist.
And we've been doing the work. We've been doing really this type of work, for 100 years, really, right?
Right,
Because we've been tapping into the spiritual parts of people long before it was acceptable and appropriate, right? We started that way, and then we were taught to undo that. We were taught to, oh, don't bring up religion, don't bring up spirituality when you're dealing with clients. That was part of the curriculum, at least when I was coming through, right? But now they're starting to say, no, we need to embrace the whole person.
right.
But we've been coaches before there were coaches. We've been healers and teachers before you know what I mean? We have been doing the work, but now we just got to go back and get all these certifications and things that we were already doing. We
Isn't
were
that
already doing.
thing? And usually paying someone that does not look like us to be able to teach us that. But the great thing is that now we're being the trainers and we're able to teach each other, and which is the way it really should be, right? So
Absolutely.
one of the next question I wanted to ask about, because you kind of touched on it, Gena, and so I'm going to come back around to Dr. Weaver down here. So what are the symptoms that are best addressed by your therapeutic methods? And who is your typical client?
So my typical client is someone who has experienced trauma. During the day, I work for the military. I'm a clinical director of a substance abuse program for the military. But in my private practice, I service people who have lost their family members to homicide. So, in both of those populations, there is a lot of trauma. So, and the reason why I love integrative medicine is because I did psychotherapy, talk therapy for all of my career. And I always felt like my clients were doing really well in my office, in my presence. But I always felt like when they left me or left the program, when we discontinued services, I always felt like I didn't give enough to help them sustain the changes they were trying to make. And so when I found out about emotional freedom technique, it was something that was easy for me to share with my clients, easy for them to pick up on, and easy for them to do, whether they were in my presence or not. And it was really a skill, a gift that they could take with them and can be able to use in any situation at any time. And so I think emotional freedom technique is something that can be used to deal with any situation that Gena already touched on it, that is putting you in parasympathetic nervous system dominance, right? Sympathetic nervous system dominance, which basically means that the midbrain, your amygdala feels something is putting you in harm's way. There's a threat. And when your brain feels like there's a threat, it's designed to protect you from harm. So it kind of shuts everything down and prepares you to fight. And so when it shuts everything down and prepares you to fight, it's releasing things like adrenaline and cortisol, all of those hormones that are going to help you gear up to run from danger. But what it's also doing at the same time is shutting down all the healing hormones, the dopamine, the serotonin, all those things, the DHEA, all those good healing hormones that help us out, that keep us young, that keep us vital and keep our organs working. Well, when the good hormones shut down and we're filled with adrenaline and cortisol, because we're thinking we're in danger, if we stay in that state too long, we really become dysregulated and we really can't sleep well. We really can't eat well. We don't function well because when we're in that state, we crave salt, sugar, and fat. And so, it's all designed to really gear us up to fight. But sometimes there's nothing to fight except for the imaginations that we have running through our mind. Like we imagine that there's danger when there may not even be any. At least that's the population that I serve. They are always imagining something that happened in their past and it's right up present with them to this day in their mind. And so they live in a perpetual state of fight or flight. So the emotional freedom technique helps them calm that down, helps them. It's really a very mindful technique and allows them to know that no, they're not really in danger. Like there may be something going on outside of them, but it puts them in a state of responding to whatever's going on outside of them instead of reacting. Because when you're in that state of fight or flight, all you can do is react. You're not thinking clearly at all. So when you calm down that nervous system, it at least allows you to access that higher thinking where you can think of creative solutions to be able to deal with life as it happens. So that's why I really like that. I love mindfulness and meditation and things, but definitely emotional freedom technique helps the energy flow throughout your body and push you back in a state where you're not living in, with toxic hormones flowing throughout your body.
Powerful, powerful. Because something you said a couple of things about EFT, which I love, is absolutely one of my most favorite interventions to use with my clients, because I work with a lot of clients that have trauma, and everything from sexual abuse to PTSD, combat trauma. I have a couple of people that were in the service and served overseas in the wars, and so you know, like you said, that fight, flight, freeze response. But the other piece of it, and I think Gena touched on it, are the emotional blockages, the energy blockages that get stuck all throughout our bodies. And EFT is amazing at shifting that energy and getting everything back in alignment and allowing it, because what I like to talk about with my clients and educate them about is how everything is about circulation and everything needs to flow in a certain divine order. And what happens when we have trauma or we have chronic stress, that gets disrupted and then we are out of alignment. So when you are stressed, and we notice that we've all experienced this, everything gets tense, everything stops and it gets frozen and, nothing is moving the way it should. So EFT helps to get everything back in circulation because there's the breathing aspect of it. There's the tapping on the energy meridians, all the chakras that's through, and the many chakras that's throughout our body. And so it's helping everything to get flowing again.
This is what I tell my clients, like, we're built just like batteries. We have a positive and negative thing. And so meridians flow, they carry the energy throughout our body, just like a battery has energy, right? And so if your battery gets weak, what do? You charge it up. You make sure that the air is flowing, the energy is flowing throughout that battery so it can continue to work. Because if the energy stops flowing, your batteries are not going to work. Well, it's the same thing with our body. I mean, I call it the gift of pain. When you have little aches and pains, whether it's physical or emotional, that's your indicator light to say, hey, I need to check in with myself. I need to recharge. I need to figure out how to get my energy flowing. And if we don't do that, which a lot of us don't, and we continue to try to pour from an empty cup, then our energy really stops flowing. And that's when you have dis-ease. And I call it, the dis-ease, being not at ease with something in your life that you really are not allowing yourself to access or deal with, right? Because you're all blocked up. So I agree with you and Gena. Like, it's so important to keep that energy flowing so that we can have access to all of our brain and not just, being in that that state where we're fighting and running from a bear. That's not even there.
That's right.
The perception of danger, right? Because the body doesn't know the difference.
No.
And this is what happens with us. And if we think about the, things that are going on in our society right now, people are under siege right now, chronic stress. So you have all of this environmental trauma that's going on everywhere. Right. Because, just because, you turn on the news, you talk to someone, you go to work, people are bringing all of their problems and negative energy and issues of life to work. And so when you hear about school shootings and workplace shootings and all of these different things that are going on, it's like a perpetual cycle of trauma. And then there's vicarious trauma, of course, as well, that many of us that are in the helping field that we can, adopt and unfortunately be victims of. And then we have to do some healing with that. Right. So this is where these alternative healing methods come in, because sometimes it's not enough to just talk about it. The evidence-based practices, absolutely. I love DBT. I love, CBT I like. DBT I love because it has the mindfulness component. And, there's so many objects relations therapy I love as well. Narrative therapy, love all of that. And you can
even bibliotherapy.
Yes. You can have your toolbox, and you really should as a therapist, right? So, what I want to bring to the audience is that it doesn't have to be an either or. You bring it all together. The spirituality piece is a key component as well, right? You meet your clients where they are. That's part of, I know we learn this in social work 101, right? Meet them where they are, and that includes if they are someone, that has very strong spirituality practices. Yeah. Why not incorporate that in their healing process? So this is the beauty of what we do. you know,
Mhm.
as social workers, as healers,
Mhm.
using these different alternative methods.
Yeah.
So, Gena, my next question, I'm going to start with you. Um, why do you feel African Americans still may struggle with seeking therapy? And how can your approach help break the stigma?
Ah. That's a loaded question, right? Because that's that's the question of the
So
century.
we know this. So let's.
That's the question of the century. I think that it is layered as to why African Americans may or may not seek therapy. However, I think that we're really on a very cutting edge time because I tell you, social media, you got to give credit where it's due. Um, Not only social media, but the movement that Black therapists have started toward mental health has been most been a major step in healing our community.
Yes.
It was so stigmatized, and it still is, but it was deeply stigmatizing. It was taboo. It was so many things. 60s, 70s, 80s, the 90s, early 2000s. And I think right now we're just starting to make this huge impact on our community. And I think it was a combination of social media and Black people, deciding that we're going to get into these spaces of helping to heal our own communities. And so we're on the rise in terms of people becoming social workers and licensed professional therapists and marriage and family therapists, because we need more people to look like us so that we can be responsible for our community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the reason why people weren't coming to therapy, one, we know historically there's a historical reason and distrust around the medical establishment in our people. We know about the experiments, we know about the different hospitals that were kidnapping people and sampling them. We know about, untreated syphilis. We know about all of these things historically that's happened in our community. And I'm sure there's thousands of other stories that we haven't even revealed yet. And so if we understand epigenetics, right, then we have to understand that if our community was traumatized by that a couple of generations ago, then we can then understand why the grandchildren will be apprehensive about seeing a doctor when they were not even traumatized themselves per se. And so, just like when they say, well, Black people don't swim and do all these things, it's not that we had a personal experience about swimming. Our ancestors did. And so we know that epigenetics typically go down three or more generations. And so if we had a historical traumatization around the medical establishment, it showed up in a way that Black folks just weren't seeing mental health professionals. I think that's one layer. And then the other layer was they weren't looking like us. Most of the therapists and the social workers and the MFTs, they weren't looking like us. And so we were going to people who didn't really understand our plight, who were misdiagnosing us, calling people schizophrenics when they just, was having trauma associated with something that was going on in their family, or, maybe bizarre behaviors that culturally people didn't understand. And so they diagnosed them as something very severe. And it may not have been that. It might have just been, maybe it was, depression with psychotic features, but it wasn't schizophrenia. And so many of our family members were misdiagnosed with very severe diagnoses. And so they may have later found out, "Oh, I thought I had schizophrenia and I don't even have schizophrenia," or "I thought I had this and I don't even have that." So then, that further fueled this notion of, do these people have my best interest? Can I trust this establishment? Can
Mm-hmm.
I trust, therapists as they are another wing to the medical? Hmm?
The trust.
Yeah, trust. Can I trust you? Right. And then I think another layer is sometimes therapists, if they don't understand that the walk that their clients have gone through, sometimes they can actually re-traumatize their clients, you
Yeah,
know, sometimes with the way they ask a question or the way they seem to doubt your experience or not connected or just doesn't join the client where they are. And sometimes therapists, if they're not thoroughly trained on cultural diversity and awareness and competency, they can actually bring more harm than good.
absolutely.
Um,
All of that.
so yeah, I'm sure it's many other reasons why, but those are the ones that stick out in my mind. And so when someone calls me, it's an honor and a privilege that they reached out to me. It's something in my message or it's something in the way that I showed up to make them feel like I can connect with you.
Right.
I want to trust you. I want to connect with you. I want you to walk with me on my journey. And so I'm always privileged and I just pour into people and I give them my all. But many people that come to see me are, dealing with a lot of different forms of anxiety, whether it's social. I have a lot of social anxiety clients that I see,
Mm,
generalized anxiety disorders, depressions, of course. Depression. I do see people with personality disorders. That's not my specialty, but they find me. um, I work with people who have an inner critic problem, right? And so sometimes they are people with personality disorders or bipolar disorders. And that's okay. But I have a specialization in test anxiety, as well as I'm really moving into this space that I've already been in, but now I'm just giving it a name, and that is like more of a racialized trauma kind of experience, working with a lot of microaggressions in the workplace, and really starting to look into something called indigenous focused, what's it called? Mm-mm-mm-mm. It's called indigenous focus oriented therapy,
mm,
right? So sometimes it's called indigenous and other times it's called aboriginal.
mm.
So it either goes by aboriginal focus oriented therapy or indigenous focus oriented therapy. So I've been looking into that,
Is that like
possibly.
ancestral healing? Is it
It's I think it's
that?
I think it is. I think it comes from the focus oriented therapy. And so I think someone in, don't get me to say the wrong name, but someone in, a therapist in Canada developed it and really spent a lot of time speaking to the so called Aboriginal peoples of Canada and the Indigenous peoples there. And so the therapy has a lot of indigenous type of work infused in the therapy. And so it sees the individual as a collective. And so I'm not an expert in that area yet, but I am researching it and I'm getting into it, as well as, intergenerational traumas. So I hope I answered your question.
Fabulous, fabulous. No, you actually answered both of them because I realized that I
Okay.
didn't get a chance to come to you about that
The
one.
other one. Mhm.
So I just because I'm just watching the time, uh, Renetta, do you want to jump on that question as well?
Well, I was just thinking real quick from my perspective, the reason why we are so apprehensive about therapy is I started out in the law enforcement arena, probation officer and things like that. And I think that was the first time that many people that look like me interfaced with therapists is when they got in trouble. So a lot of people in my experience associate therapy with you got a problem, we got to fix it. There's something wrong with you. We got to take care of that. And so I think that stigma is still there that if I'm coming to therapy, there's something wrong with me. I'm broken. I need to be fixed. And we know that people don't need to be fixed. They just need a safe place where they can find themselves again, and decide what they want to do instead of being fixed by someone.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we can't fix them anyway. We're
I don't have a magic wand. I'm sorry.
here to be a guide, and I'm sure that's what we all, we let them know that we're here to be a guide. The healing is within. Just like Gena touched on. you know, this thing is inherent in us, especially us as, you know, as a people, as a population. You know, this movement of people, our people being aware and awake to our ability to heal ourselves and mental health awareness is beautiful because it's like ding ding ding, they're all connected.
I want to say something about that. So epigenetics, for the, it may be a new term for a lot of people. It was for me. But I learned about it when I was studying emotional freedom techniques. So epigenetics speaks to the fact that a lot of people think you are imprisoned to your DNA. And actually our DNA has genes that turn on and off depending on our environmental influences and our historical influences. So, you know, even though something may have run in your family, it doesn't mean that you are imprisoned to that type of experience, because there could be things that shape your reality, that shape your experience, that turns on. The epigenetics is like you have your DNA and then you have the genes, that you have something that's on top of your DNA that's basically stronger, and your genes turn on and off based on a lot of environmental influences. So, you know, just because your grandmother experienced something or your mom experienced something doesn't mean that that has to be your experience. And I really love the Facebook meme that says, just because it ran in my family doesn't mean it can't run out with me. We can all be
Oh, I haven't heard that. I like that.
breakers of our, you know, we can break the cycle of generations in our family. So I really had to say that. And that's what epigenetics speaks to, on top of your genes, right? We have our DNA, our blueprint, but that is not the final answer.
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
glad you said
Very
that.
good point.
I
Very good point.
I earlier I posted something about someone said our genes load the gun, but our environment pulls the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. I mean, we're like, just like we all have cancer cells, that doesn't mean that they're going to be activated.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you said, your environment, the way you process stress, what you're eating, who you're around, all of that can keep those cancer cells at bay, or it can ignite them. But you're right, we do have a choice. Epigenetics really, for me, just helps us to understand, though, that just like a lot of studies have been done with the Holocaust survivors, right? And so, really, they started looking at them when they were looking at a lot of the epigenetic studies. And so they were able to show that, generations were experiencing trauma, even, 2 and 3 generations after the Holocaust. And so, it doesn't give people an excuse to act out or do something strange, or just not be a responsible, whole functioning person. But it does kind of it sheds light on what could be part of it.
I
But you're
think that's
right.
important when it comes to our culture, right? Because
Yeah.
it's okay with the Holocaust people to have those experiences. But I was talking to, I call her my business bestie, Dr. Langford, one day, and I
Mhm.
was saying, I think the younger people in our culture are becoming more primitive, more aggressive in nature because of historical trauma, and it's starting to reprogram the way their brain is shaped and how they exist in the world. Like, I really think they they have a wilderness mindset where it's the survival of the fittest. And I really do think that's based on historical trauma that still exists in us, and people don't acknowledge that. So I really agree with you on that so much.
Mhm.
But I'm also, and I know we all agree on both sides. I just want people to know that you don't have to be imprisoned to that type of situation, and you can change. We have the power to
Mm.
heal and change ourselves. I just want
Yes,
people to know that.
absolutely, we do.
Yep. So what do you, this is the last question, just because you know, I try to keep to be respectful of everyone. I know it, look, I know we were supposed to do this last night, so those of you that joined us this evening. Thank you for your patience because we had some, technical difficulties last night, but we're here. So if you catch this on the replay, we understand because, things happen. And, I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to get on this evening. So I did not want you to miss the opportunity to hear from these two amazing trailblazing therapists and beautiful souls. And I just want to kind of close out with one last final question and then give you both an opportunity to share some info about what you have coming up and what you're working on. And then, of course, dropping your information on how people can reach you. So the last question is, what do you think the most prevalent mental health issue in our communities is right now, and how can your specialty bring about change and help? You want to start, Dr. Weaver?
Oh, okay. I think the most prevalent will be trauma and stress. We've already covered it, but I think a lot of things boil down to trauma and stress. Also, a lot of shame and guilt. So I know you asked for one. I would say trauma being the umbrella, and underneath that being shame, guilt, and stress. So my specialty, I believe I do a really holistic approach to addressing those issues in my specialty. So when people come in to see me, I do an assessment, but not the typical clinical assessment. I guess it's typical, but what we do is we draw out a tree. And when we draw out the tree, we look at what are you rooted and grounded in? Was it healthy or unhealthy? And then we look at the base of the tree as it grows up. What has happened to you during your childhood and teenage years? And did your childhood, did your infancy and childhood develop that hole that trees sometimes get? Is there a hole in the center of the tree? And what have you been filling that hole up with? Is it things that are good and good coping skills for you, or did you learn to get into drugs and alcohol and some kind of escape route to cope with what happened in your infancy and childhood? And then we look at the branches on the tree, and I always say, okay, let's look at the leaves, and the branches could represent the different areas of their life, whether it's work, relationships, spirituality, anything, any area of their life, right? And we look at if those leaves are green, which means they're thriving in those areas, or although are those leaves brown or not growing at all because they used to be green and then something happened and they turned brown, or they not growing at all because you've been damaged from the root and your tree can't grow. So I go in, and that really gives the clients a way to kind of look at their life in perspective and see what's going on. And then we look at how to turn all those leaves on their branches green again. So that is really my approach to working with people. And it's been wonderful.
Beautiful. I love that. I love it.
That's beautiful.
Gena?
Oh gosh. So, our community, we are faced with so many things. It's so unfortunate. Like I said, it doesn't mean that we're victims. It just means that, we are quite resilient, with the level of things that like impact our community. It's just amazing that we're still here. And that we're thriving and surviving and just doing wonderful things with our life. But the clients that come to me, I mean, a lot of them are dealing with really, really low self-esteem. Um, a lot of self-worth issues. But again, who can blame them when the media is telling you that your hair and your skin and your way and your attitude and your style and your flair and all these things are wrong about you, um, and police are shooting you and killing you, and the president is condemning you and berating you. Who can blame people for having such low self-worth now? So I think self-worth, a low self-worth, is something that comes in my office all the time. And because of that, I'm seeing a lot of anger that's coming out of that. Um, People just are not able to get in touch with their emotions. It's like I go from where I am to anger. There's no middle ground. Anger is so accessible to most of us, and that's where people go to. And so it's almost like we have to build up our emotional quotient again. We have to get emotionally mature and learn some real skills on how to manage ourselves. Another is childhood trauma. I mean, sexual traumas galore, and it's not just sexual, it could be physical, emotional, but we have a lot of childhood traumas that manifest themselves in the adult with, as substance use, anger, domestic violence, you name it, even personality disorders. Um, and what I'm starting to see more and more now is a lot of workplace microaggressions. Um, I mean, all of my career women, business women, or even just women who work in, regular 9 to 5s or working at the supermarket, microaggressions are real.
Yeah.
So this pervasive racism has changed into a different form now. It's like, you know, it's slighting of other people, it's keeping people away from promotions, it's blocking them out of important meetings, it's shunning them and shutting them out. And it's creating like a deep sense of resentment and rejection and all it's just layered. So I'm seeing a lot of that. And also another thing that's rising up in my practice is church hurt. I'm seeing a lot of people that are hurt by the religion religious institutions, whether it's the institutions itself or it's the particular people in the church. Maybe they've been abused in the church, or they've been mishandled in some sort of way, or they've been condemned. Their actions have been condemned, or they have been excommunicated by the church. I mean, we can go on and on and on. And so church hurt is definitely on the rise in my practice.
Wow.
Mhm.
So, ladies, please let everyone know how they can get in contact with you, what you have on the horizon, what's the good news, programs.
Obarigani.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yes. So that's right. So, and also just, leave a parting tip that you want to leave with the people. So, Dr. Renetta Weaver.
um, so the one thing I want to say to everyone who's watching this, I always say these little cliches, and I just want to say you have the absolute right to change your mind, right? So what I mean by that is just a play on words. You can change your mind about a decision you made, like, oh, I thought I was going to do it this way, but I want to do it differently. Or you can change these 6 inches between your ears. You have the right to do that. And so don't allow anyone, including yourself, to talk you out of the gift of change. So I wrote a book, which is out now. It's an anthology. It's in pre-sales now, and it's called Unchain Me Mama. And it's all about mother-daughter conflict and the idea of forgiveness. Um, and so, everybody has a different definition of forgiveness and what that means. Some people are ready to forgive and want to know how to do it. And some people say, I can't forgive at all. Well, this book kind of answers the question with each author talking about their process, how they navigated the journey of forgiveness and whether they did it or not. So that is really what I have out on the horizon right now. I do have my private practice. I do a free grief and loss support group every second and fourth Tuesday of the month in Washington, D.C. And that's really it. If you want to find me, you can go to my website, renettaweaver.com, www.renettaweaver.com. That's RENETTA.WEAVER. You can also, please know that website may be under construction right now. I actually have someone working on it, so it will be up and running for sure by the end of the month. And you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram under Dr. Renetta. So DrRenetta.
Yes, the unstuck queen. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Renetta Weaver. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you.
And you are a blessing to the people, and just keep doing what you're
Mhm.
doing.
Yes.
Miss Gena.
Yes. So, what do I have on the horizon? So, I have a holistic wellness series that's out. It's my summer fall series. And like so we have something happening August 10th, which is next Saturday. It's called Our Hair, Our Self-Esteem.
Mm.
And so I'm inviting a beautiful woman who she's the CEO of her own hair company, but she's also a dynamic cultural anthropologist. So she's blended in all her studies of the different cultures and the hair, and we're going to talk about self-esteem. But really twice a month we're going to be talking about something different. So that one is on self-esteem and hair. Then I'll be doing something on healing crystals in August 24th. And then we have another person that's going to be talking about healing teas and how to use tea to help balance your emotions. We have someone talking about essential oils and balancing your emotions with that. We have another person talking about energy medicine and detoxing your body. So these are all held in Atlanta. We're doing it twice a month. Um, and they can go to my website to find out more. That's I don't know, www.innercoachhypnotherapy.com. That's a long title. Um, Also, I'm working on my book. It should be out this fall. It's called, well, I don't know the title yet, but it's about slaying your inner critic so
Mhm.
that you can slay test anxiety.
I like
This
that
one,
title. What's wrong with that?
what slaying your inner critic? Well, I think,
Your
well,
inner critic.
that might be volume 2 or 1. I don't know. We're trying to figure out which one is coming out first, but we have one on, two different books. One is on slaying the inner critic, one is on the test anxiety. So really the one on test anxiety is you could use it for all sorts of things because it's chock full of how to really get rid of that inner chatterbox that keeps blocking you. So that should be coming out this fall. And I really hope you guys join, go on over to my website and check out some of the things we have coming down the horizon.
Well, congratulations, ladies, both of you, on the books and all
Yeah.
of your endeavors. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Miss Gena. Thank you, Dr. Weaver. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with everyone.
Thank
Those of
you.
you that catch this on the replay, just put hashtag replay. Thank you for your patience, audience. Those that were, trying to get on and see us last night, and you were able to join us tonight. Thank you again, and thank you for joining
Yeah.
Healers Haven virtual panel series. I am Phoenix Love of a Healers Haven. I will be back with another panel series, and you do not want to miss this in September. What happens in September? Everybody's back in school. And I
Mm.
know some, areas of the country, kids start school in August, but we're going to do it in September because by then, some people are getting parents are getting those phone calls. The teachers are ready to pull their hair out already. The social workers are like, no, what you mean? I got 25 kids on my caseload. Like, so, you know, it's, yeah. So I am going to have a really important series in September for children's and families.
Mm.
So tune in because I may have a few people come back because I know we are multifaceted as therapists. So you may have this specialization, but you work with the population of children and families. So you
Mhm,
may see some
mhm.
faces come back again. But I also want to mention that Healers Haven, actually, I have a women's healing and support group
Mhm,
that I offer in the Long Island, New York City area.
mm.
So if you're in this region, you can inbox me. I'll also drop the link for that information in the promo flyer. If you are interested in being a part of that healing and support group, it's meditation, it's sound baths, it's stress
Mm,
management, it's
mm.
also just talking about things that are important to women. It's a
Mhm.
very small, intimate group. So, there we had our first one about 2 weeks ago, and it was powerful.
Wow.
It's a wonderful series, and I'm looking forward to having more ladies come out and join us, and I'm sure you'll be blessed. So again, thank you, everyone. Have a blessed evening. Thank you, my guests, and everyone take care.
Good
Love
night.
y'all.